Welcome to Mindshock. This is your host, Bruce McGuire.
And Maxwell Powers.
And we are gonna go over declassified Bigfoot files from the FBI that were just released yesterday. Have you heard about this, Maxwell?
No.
Well, we are going to be digging deep, and you can find these files right on the FBI.gov website. The conspiracy is unraveling. Once again, if you like our podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you like the video, hit the like button. Feel free to share it across social media platforms. Like our Facebook page. You can also check us out on Twitter, Reddit, Patreon. Any thoughts, questions, comments, theories, just drop them in the comment section. So, Maxwell, do you remember what we went over on the Bigfoot Conspiracy podcast? Anyone who hasn't heard that, check that out. It is a very, very in-depth podcast on government involvement and knowledge of Bigfoot, including military documents and an atlas that basically verifies maybe not the existence of Bigfoot, but the perceived existence by military and government agencies. You remember everything we talked about, right, Maxwell? You have an impeccable memory.
I can't recall right now, but if you remind me of things, I might.
You don't remember? We went over the atlas that had that Bigfoot in Oregon, Washington State, and we went over people sending samples to the FBI for lab testing, and then supposed samples disappearing. We went over a lot on that podcast. That was probably the best Bigfoot podcast we ever did. I don't know. Shadow Sasquatch was pretty good too, and interdimensional Bigfoot. Actually, and aquatic Bigfoot. Actually, all our Bigfoot podcasts are pretty good. All right, so real quick, let me go over this. This was from the Washington Post, and it was posted today, actually, June 6, 2019. He asked the FBI to analyze Bigfoot hair 40 years ago and never heard back until now. It began, as it often does, with a glimpse, something tall, something hairy, something that left footprints too big to be human. Whatever it was, the spotting was more than enough to get Peter Byrne on the scene. It was the mid-1970s, and Byrne had already made a name for himself as one of the world's most prominent researchers of Bigfoot. His passion exposed him to a few kooks and a lot of fakery. He said in an interview with the Washington Post, but on that day he found neither. This was what he called a credible sighting. Two men, both biologists, and both employees of the U.S. Forest Service, spotted an unidentified walking creature in a forest somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Last seen lumbering between a pair of trees. Q. Byrne, who at the time was director of the Bigfoot Information Center and Exhibition in Dallas, Oregon. When Byrne arrived, he noticed the trees stood close together, far too narrow a space for something with broad shoulders and big feet to make a clean egress. And there, between 3 and 5 feet off the ground, snagged in the bark, he spotted the tuft of hair and piece of skin he hoped would bring him one step closer to his idea fixe, the Sasquatch itself, a towering hominid of North American lore. Byrne bagged the sample and had it delivered to the FBI. I guess this was back in the 70s when people trusted the FBI and they didn't think there was any kind of conspiracy with anything and they trusted the government in general. I don't know. In one letter to the Bureau, he asked if an agent could, quote, arrange for a comparative analysis of some hairs that we have here which we are unable to identify. In another, he stressed the urgency of the inquiry. Please understand that our research here is serious. This is a serious question that needs answering. He never heard back. Until Wednesday, when the Bureau released its 4-decade-old Bigfoot files. Byrne didn't know it then, but the FBI took his request seriously. A man named J. Cochran Jr., the assistant director of the FBI's Scientific and Technical Services Division, agreed to test the hair and skin, granting Byrne's request a special exception to department policy. Occasionally, on a case-by-case basis, in the interest of research and scientific inquiry, we make exceptions to this general policy, Cochrane wrote in a December 15th, 1976 letter that was addressed to Byrne, but apparently never reached him. With this understanding, we will examine the hairs and tissue mentioned in your letter. Just a few months later, Cochrane sent another letter. He had the results. On February 24th, 1977, he wrote that the FBI had examined the sample by transmitted and incident light microscopy, which included a study of morphological characteristics such as root structure, medullary structure, and cuticle thickness, in addition to scale casts. And after all that, it was concluded, as a result of these examinations, that the hairs are of deer family origin. Deer family origin. With those 3 words delivered 40 years late, Cochrane tied a few helpful loose ends into a disheartening bow. We're just finding this out, Byrne, who is now 93 years old, said it's disappointing. Born in Ireland, Byrne was weaned on stories of another legendary 2-legged creature. At first, the Yeti was but a bedtime fantasy, tales his father told him as he drifted off. But in the 40s and 50s, after a stint in the British Royal Air Force took him to India, he met other foreigners interested in real-life Yeti expeditions. He wound up taking 5 trips to the Himalayas, casing the treacherous mountain terrain for a sign. It was those excursions that connected him with Americans who were fascinated by rumors of mysterious and giant primate-like animals on their own continent. Quite honestly, I laughed, Byrne said. He had never heard of Bigfoot, but he learned fast. I got into it, and I've been into it ever since. That's likely an understatement. In the Bigfoot research community, Byrne is a living legend, a pioneer of the field, what fellow travelers call one of the 4 horsemen of Sasquatchery. I'm sure Maxwell can list all these 4 horsemen, right?
I just heard Sasquatchery. What do you mean by list 4 horsemen?
People call the 4 pioneers the 4 horsemen of Sasquatchery.
Okay. That's funny.
Yes, it is indeed pretty funny. The 4 horsemen of Sasquatchery was actually a term coined in the 1999 documentary Sasquatch Odyssey, The Hunt for Bigfoot. And these are Renee Dehenden, John Green, Peter Byrne, and Grover Krantz. We went over most of these guys on our previous Bigfoot podcasts. So anyway, back to Byrne. He has traveled the world, written books, and led research projects devoted to finding out more about Bigfoot, the anglicized term for Sasquatch, a centuries-old indigenous legend. He's never seen it for himself, but he believes. I've interviewed too many down-to-earth, sane, sensible people, he said. Too many people for them to be making up stories. The description is always the same. Laura Krantz has heard these descriptions too. Reports of footprints and sightings over the course of 2 years, reporting Wild Thing, a podcast about Bigfoot. She set out to understand how one of her relatives, the renowned anthropologist Grover Krantz, had become obsessed by the search for Sasquatch. I went into this expecting everyone to be crazy and a little like the tinfoil hat conspiracy theory types, Krantz said in an interview. Is she describing people like us, Maxwell?
No, man.
You don't got your tinfoil hat on right now? I thought you wore that 24/7, even to bed and in the shower.
Just in the shower.
Oh, okay. Wait, so you don't wear it anywhere except in the shower? You think like the water's trying to control your mind or something?
Something like that. Penetrating my brain and shit.
Is that what's causing the memory issues?
Something like that.
I ended up being quite a bit more sympathetic than I imagined, Krantz said. Most of the people she ran into had a conversation ethic, and they came by their Bigfoot fixation honestly, by having an encounter with nature they just couldn't explain. They're asking a question they're curious about, she said. They had some sort of experience, and they were trying to use science and logic to figure out what this thing was, and to me, that's just being human. So it's not that surprising that the FBI didn't sneer at Byrne's request and toss his letter into the trash, Krantz said. There very well may have been curiosity within the FBI, she said. There does not seem to be many people immune to the idea of Bigfoot. But there may have been a practical purpose behind the Bureau's agreeable reply. In the mid-1970s, an erroneous entry in the Army Corps of Engineers Atlas sparked rumors that the FBI had previously analyzed alleged Sasquatch hair samples and found that no hair exists on any human or presently known animal for which such data are available. Once again, this is what we went over in our Bigfoot conspiracy podcast. Check that out. We go deep into all of that. In his letters, Byrne asked the FBI to set the record straight once and for all. Inform us if the FBI has examined hair, which might be that of a Bigfoot, he wrote. Cochran responded that no, FBI records do not show evidence of any such examination. But Krantz said it's possible the FBI has received so many questions about the Army Corps Atlas entry that they acquiesced to Byrne's request for testing to put an end to the theorizing. But it didn't stop Byrne, and even if he had received Cochran's replies, he likely would not have been deterred. Even now, in his 9th decade, Byrne is still searching. He has half a dozen motion sensor cameras set up near his Oregon home, and he checks them weekly, hoping for a sighting of his own. So what if that was a hair of a deer, he said. The real stuff is out there somewhere. That's kind of a dead end, he said, of his 1970s era finding. If the FBI says it's deer hair, I guess that's it, for now. At least until the next glimpse. Okay, so a couple things. He seems to still inexplicably just trust the FBI completely, as if they would never lie about anything or cover up anything, or that they could be mistaken in any way. Because if obviously the test in the 70s is not quite as accurate as today, but we talk about this in actually some of our true crime podcasts, particularly DNA for Dummies in the Stephen Avery series. There's 2 parts of that. If you're interested in how DNA testing works and thresholds and false positives, and because if this, for whatever reason, the sample could identify as a different sample, just like people get false positive for certain diseases, and then they get all stressed out, then they do a more accurate test. It turns out the first test was wrong. So to take on gospel truth, just one single test. Here's the other thing. If that sighting was legit and it really was a Bigfoot going by trees, who's obviously there would have been deer going by there as well. So having deer hair left there, if that's what it was, that doesn't mean the Bigfoot wasn't there, right?
Exactly.
Also, if it was hair that was a mix of Bigfoot and deer hair, if the Bigfoot hair didn't register for whatever reason, or of course the FBI is lying to cover it up, as we went over all the different reasons why they would do that. And this isn't the only test from government agencies that has disappeared into thin air. There were other tests where they were sent to laboratories, and then all of a sudden there was no test ever done. There was no sample on record, even with corroborating paperwork. So none of this is really all that bizarre or surprising or rules out Bigfoot in any way. So if you can check out, there are 22 pages that were released yesterday by the FBI, and you can go, this is on fbi.gov, and you can check out there's even photographs of the hair sample. Does it look like deer hair? No, it doesn't quite look like deer hair to me. It looks pretty long, looks a couple inches long. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. So this is the first response to Mr. Byrne by Jay Cochran. I have received your letter of November 24th requesting an FBI laboratory analysis of 15 unidentified hairs and tissue sample as well. The FBI laboratory conducts examinations primarily of physical evidence for law enforcement agencies in connection with criminal investigations. Occasionally, on a case-by-case basis, in the interest of research and scientific inquiry, we make exceptions to this general policy. With this understanding, we will examine the hairs and tissue mentioned in your letter. They should be submitted to the FBI Laboratory's Scientific Analysis Section, J. Edgar Hoover Building, Washington, D.C., 20535. Attention, Special Agent redacted in your reply. Include available background information concerning the source of the specimen. That's weird. They redacted the name of the special agent at the FBI laboratory. Think that's weird or no? Maxwell.
It's okay. It's not it's not that weird. Oh, I don't know. It's kind of weird.
In a follow-up letter, I guess he didn't receive these letters. I don't know. Or maybe these letters were never really sent. They were just pretended to be sent so that this could all be set up. What do you think? Here's a mind shock. What do you think the chances are that this was some kind of a planned cover-up where it was all planned beforehand, so then later they could say, oh, look, yeah, here are these dated letters. He might have never got them, but they were sent.
Wait, they have proof that they sent it?
There's all these stamps on it with there's all these timestamps on it, but I mean, I'm guessing maybe, I don't know. That's not really relevant to my question. The question
Okay.
was, do you think they would set up something like that as like a long-term game plan to cover up the existence of Bigfoot?
Um, it's pretty quick, clever way, I guess, to do it.
I mean, it's not really quick. I mean, this is decades old, 40 years. Did you not get that this was from the 70s? I mentioned that number a number of times. Well,
Uh,
these were declassified yesterday from the 1970s, 1976. This
well,
communication is occurring in the 70s, 1976.
oh, I see. But, so why did it take so long?
But did you pay attention to anything I said, Maxwell?
I don't know, I just heard a bunch of, like,
I introduced in the introduction. I introduced the whole deal. Burn
yes,
Burn wants these hairs and tissue samples analyzed.
yeah, he's, 93, he's probably passed away already, right? He was 93 in the 70s.
No, he's 93 now, giving comments about what just happened.
Oh, okay.
You must have missed the part where I said where he is now 93 years old. And I even said, like, it's kind of weird that he still trusts the FBI just
Oh,
explicitly.
after all these years, he just trusts.
Well, it's
After
just
40
kind of
years.
weird. It's kind of weird that it doesn't even occur to him that the lab could have had an error or they're lying to him to cover up the existence of Bigfoot. Because he said if it was deer, it was deer. If that's what they said it was, that's what it was. I mean, that's his attitude. From it seems like, unless he's just being politically correct in his statements. But
Mm.
so he said he never got these responses, these letters. So maybe they sent them, maybe they didn't, but they are time stamped. I mean, I guess it's possible they could have all been fake now, but I mean, I don't know. It's all kind of weird. So here's another letter. This is from Byrne. Dear Mr. Cochran, I thank you for your letter of September 10th, 1976. So he seems to have gotten some of the letters. So not all of these. So I believe only the last one or two would have been not received because he never got the result. I thank you for your letter of September 10th, 1976. I am writing again to ask if you could possibly arrange for a comparative analysis of some hairs that we have here which we are unable to identify. You may know something of the program in which we, through the part sponsorship of the undermentioned academy, are engaged. Should you not, I am enclosing an article which will partially explain what it is that we are trying to do. Briefly, we do not often come across hair which we are unable to identify, and the hair that we have now, about 15 hairs attached to a tiny piece of the skin, is the first that we have obtained in 6 years which we feel may be of importance. Please advise if you are able to perform this task for us. Yours very truly, Peter Byrne. Did you get all that? So he attached some newspaper articles about Bigfoot.
Okay, and okay, but he was referring to like a bunch of hair samples, like he.
Yes, they got hair samples. Here's the other weird thing, though. Did the FBI just want to confiscate the samples? Because let's say if they had more samples, I mean, hopefully they didn't send all the samples so they could do independent testing. But which we'll get into modern DNA testing. We've referenced the the Ketchum DNA study, and all of the intricacies of that study, theoretically proving DNA exists via, or Bigfoot exists via DNA. But and we'll do a dedicated podcast on that because that's a one complicated mess with a lot of problems, potential peer review, and a lot of subterfuge and sabotage and shutting that study down. So if the FBI is just doing this to confiscate samples, similar to how they did with giants, do you remember on our giants podcast we went over how the Smithsonian kind of just showed up and took giant bones from just random people's backyards, different land all over the country, and then they were just never seen again. But they were old newspaper articles with photographs of these gigantic human giant bones.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if the FBI is involved in a cover up and conspiracy, or the government is, then it would be in their best interest to try to confiscate as many samples as possible so there's not a lot of evidence out there. Yes, no?
yeah.
So yeah, he's Peter Byrne is the head of this Bigfoot research group, and they're taking this very seriously. He wants the FBI to know that. So here's the response. Gentlemen, this institution conducts research on and into the Bigfoot phenomenon of the Pacific. So this is from Byrne again. This institution conducts research on and into the Bigfoot phenomenon of the Pacific Northwest of the USA. We have been in operation for nearly 6 years, and we are associated with the Academy of Applied Science of Boston, Massachusetts. From time to time, we have been informed that the hair, supposedly of a Bigfoot, has been sent for examination to the FBI, has been examined by the FBI, and with the conclusion, as a report of the examination, that it was not possible to compare the hair with that of any known creature on this continent. Will you kindly, to set the record straight once and for all, inform us if the FBI has examined hair which might be that of a Bigfoot when this took place, if it did take place, what the results of the analysis were? So they're referencing the atlas here. Please understand that our research here is serious, that this is a serious question that needs answering, and that an examination of hair or the opposite by the FBI does not in any way, as far as we are concerned, suggest that the FBI is associated with our project or confirms in any way the possibility of the existence of the creature known as Bigfoot. So the response is made. Reference is made to your letter dated August 26, 76 concerning the reported examination of hairs by the FBI laboratory in connection with the Bigfoot phenomenon. Since the publication of the Washington Environmental Atlas in 1975, which referred to such examinations, we have received several inquiries similar to yours. However, we have been unable to locate any references to such examinations in our files. Sincerely yours, J. Cochran Jr. So here's the thing. If there were in the files, would they admit it? Like, whenever there's a leak, the leak is either plugged or disavowed or stated as disinfo. How often does the government say, oh, yeah, we really did do that? What do you think?
I don't know, man.
What do you mean you don't know? That was like that was a very simple question.
What do I think about them keeping information from the public?
They said they couldn't locate it in their files that was referenced in the atlas about the sample that doesn't match any known human or animal.
Well, it's kind of shady, but I don't know. It's a big place, and they always lose files anyway. So
Yeah, so Jay Cochran could have been honest and he couldn't have found the file. But if the file was classified and above his clearance or pay grade, he wouldn't be able to get the file anyway, and he would never know of its existence, right?
right,
And
so he would just
yeah,
lie about it and
well,
say
no,
something like,
yeah, but that wouldn't be a lie then, right? Because if he never knew about its
yeah,
existence
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
he doesn't have, so he just looks through whatever he has the clearance to look through, and it's not there, then he can give an honest reply to Peter Byrne.
yeah. It's a
And
good
what are
way
the
to put it.
chances that just to satisfy some random citizen, he's going to go ask his superior who has top secret clearance about it? And even if he does ask him, he's not going to be told if he doesn't have the clearance. So if there is some top secret cover up, none of these people would know. Or Jay Cochran Jr. does have the clearance and he does know about it. And if that's the case, what was Peter Byrne expecting? He would say, oh, yeah, we did do that. And it's classified. So yeah, there's Bigfoot, but you can't tell anybody about it and burn this letter. Like, if it really was done, what kind of response would the FBI give? That was my point there.
Yeah, I don't know how they would respond. Would they say these are the results? It's no there's no animal linking the hair to, so it has to be some kind of weird Bigfoot creature.
All
I
right,
don't know.
so here's some more documentation. So this was memorandum to Mr. McDermott regarding requested examination of unidentified hair from the Bigfoot Information Center and Exhibition, the Dallas, Oregon. Recommendation 1, that Mr. Burns' request for examination of 15 identified hairs and tissue be granted. 2, if examination is granted, attached letter be approved and forwarded to Mr. Byrne. Details. The July 6, 1975 issue of the Washington Star News carried outline and photograph attached caption recognition at last concerning the recently published U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Washington Environmental Atlas. The atlas contained information regarding the possible existence of Sasquatch, aka Bigfoot, the legendary creature of the Pacific Northwest mountains. This atlas reported that a sample of reputed Sasquatch hair was analyzed by the FBI and found to belong to no known animal. Inasmuch as FBI laboratory experts had no records or recollection of such an examination, Dr. Steve Rice, editor of the Army Atlas, was telephonically contacted in Seattle, Washington. After checking, Dr. Rice was unable to locate his source of the reported FBI examination. By letter dated August 26, 76, Mr. Peter C. Byrne, director of the Bigfoot Information Center and Exhibition. In my letter dated September 10th, 1976, Mr. Byrne was told the FBI laboratory had no references to such an examination. According to the New York Times article, Mr. Byrne's 5-year search for Bigfoot is supported by the Academy of Applied Sciences, Boston, Massachusetts, admission fees to his exhibit, and small donations from other sources. The AAS is the chief sponsor of the current Loch Ness expedition in Scotland. AAS is listed in the Encyclopedia of Associations as being founded in 1962 and dedicated to applied sciences and engineering. It claims 300 members and 1 staff member. A search of Bureau indices contained no information identifiable with Mr. Byrne or the Bigfoot Information Center and Exhibition. So here's another memorandum. Mr. McDermott J. Cochran Jr. requested examination of unidentified hair from the Bigfoot Information Center. Purpose: to set out background information concerning published reports that the FBI has analyzed hair in connection with the search for Sasquatch, aka Bigfoot, and to recommend that requested hair examinations received November 24th, 76, from Peter Byrne. Synopsis: background information concerning Sasquatch set out with request received November 24th, 76, from Peter Byrne. Current Bureau policy. Okay, we already went over that. The exceptions in archaeological matters in the interest of research and legitimate scientific inquiry. All right, so this is what the response was. The hairs which you recently delivered to the FBI laboratory on behalf of the Bigfoot Information Center and Exhibition have been examined by transmitted and incident light microscopy. The examinations included a study of morphological characteristics such as root structure, medullary structure, and cuticle thickness, in addition to scale casts. Also, the hairs were compared directly with hairs of known origin under a comparison microscope. It was concluded, as a result of these examinations, that the hairs are of deer family origin. The hair sample you submitted is being returned as an enclosure to this letter. Okay, so if they also returned the letter, returned the samples with the letter. So he said he never got this. So it would be interesting if they kept the sample for their own independent testing and see if the return sample from the FBI was switched with regular deer hair and tissue. Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
Good thing you're doing a podcast on Bigfoot. Did you follow all this? So supposedly they sent back the hair samples after testing them and saying they're deer DNA. So it would they hopefully they preserved their own samples and didn't just send everything they had to the FBI. They must have known there was a chance they wouldn't get it back at all, and then they would have to just take on blind faith that not only was the test accurate, but the information relayed about the test was truthful. That's a lot of ifs. That's not being objectively scientific and verifying everything logically. Trust but verify. Even if everybody in the FBI is completely honest and was relaying the truth, it still could be inaccurate. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to retest these if these are still available somewhere, or obviously they're probably lost by now. But anyway, it's interesting that these files are being declassified. Why were these files classified in the first place? Can you answer that one, Maxwell?
Yeah, it's messed up. Yeah, that kind of thing makes me angry. It's the I don't know. Like, it makes me angry. People decide at that level what people can have access to.
Yeah, but what's the point of classifying an alleged alleged Bigfoot hair sample that turns out to be a deer sample? Like what? Unless they just don't want anybody to know that the FBI took Bigfoot seriously and tested anything at all. If that was the purpose behind keeping everything hush hush and quiet,
That's actually a good point. Like, that's actually a good point.
yeah,
Because
that's the only thing I
like
can think of.
that would invite a lot of samples into the FBI, and then they'd have to employ like 100 people in a Bigfoot department, and
Well, that actually wasn't my point with it at all. The point was that they didn't want anybody to know that the government took Bigfoot seriously.
yeah, that's what I mean. Because they would have to do that.
No, they wouldn't, because their policy is to not test anything that doesn't have to do with crimes, and they, on a case by case basis, they make exemptions. So it wouldn't really they wouldn't make a Bigfoot department or anything. They would just send a sample for testing once or twice a year. No biggie.
Oh well, that's what I mean. Like if it's the policy is just to do the crime stuff, um, uh, people would submit it. I don't know. I don't know what the hell to say.
Good thing you're doing a podcast.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying. Like um, they they did it to make it seem uninterested in Bigfoot.
No, my whole point was a legitimacy because it's kind of like, what if someone sent a hair sample of Mothman to the FBI and they actually tested it? Like, that almost makes the FBI look non-credible because why are they spending time and resources even addressing Mothman? Or like, some kind of creature that's deemed ridiculous.
Wait, so what do you think? What my point was? What point was I making?
You were saying that more people would be sending samples and then have to do more tests. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the court of public opinion.
Wouldn't that be the effect though?
That's not my
If
point. Maybe, but that's completely irrelevant to my point, which was just the court of public opinion, which it makes it seem like the FBI is taking Bigfoot seriously. Kind of like if someone had a ghost video and they're sending it to the FBI laboratory, forensics laboratory, to determine if the video of the ghost is legitimate. Like, why would the FBI even do the test? Because if they do the test, then they're saying, oh, like maybe ghosts are real. Let's do it. Like, it lends credibility to the paranormal, which they want to downplay for the masses.
Gotcha.
You get that point or no?
Yeah, I get your point. I think I was making a point on the effect of.
Yes, that could have happened also. Yes, more people could send stuff, but I think they just didn't want anybody to know that they even did tests on Bigfoot. Because that almost makes Bigfoot credible, right?
And that's your point is that's why they kept it classified. That's what you're saying too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the UFO documents are a completely different can of worms. But with Bigfoot, we went over a couple different scenarios. If Bigfoot is a government genetic experiment, or it really was a creature at one point, then it went extinct, the government brought it back, or they're doing some kind of really bizarre testing with killing people by using Bigfoot and they don't want anybody to know about it. Just bizarre extensions of MK Ultra type experiments where they unleash genetic experiments on unwitting civilians in forests. Like, that could never go public. I mean, if you could just look at the stuff that was declassified about MK Ultra, you can only imagine the stuff that will never be declassified, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really, really bizarre. But yeah, interesting nonetheless. And we will continue with our Bigfoot series. We will be going over the Ketchum DNA study, as well as plenty of other Bigfoot encounters. We hope you enjoyed another edition of the Mindshock podcast. If you like the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the description. Subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, feel free to share it. Like our Facebook page. You can also check us out, Twitter, Reddit, Patreon. Thoughts, comments, questions, theories, just drop them in the comment section. Or encounters, if you've had your own encounters, let us know about it. Would be very, very cool to see how many people have had first-hand encounters with Bigfoot that have not yet told their stories. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
And Maxwell Powers.
We'll catch you guys next time.